All righty, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, it looks like we have 94 people. That's pretty wonderful. Registrants coming up. Okay. Let's get to the exciting PowerPoint of the day. Ready? And we're going to start from the beginning. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. My name is Samantha Thermos. I'm the director of the ZAP program. And I'm going to go ahead and let you know that we will have someone starting new that will manage Tier 2, but that won't be until April, beginning of April. So please leverage me as your point of contact for any appointments or questions or emails. This season, as the new person, will be helping them ramp on. So go ahead and leverage me this year. Kelsey, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Let me minimize all my screens and unmute myself. Hi, everyone. Lovely to see you. My name is Kelsey Ellis, and I am the ZAP Impact Program Manager. So I'm happy. I know that when we're a short team, I get a couple of emails and phone calls. I'm happy to take those. But as Samantha said, just know that as she's the expert, I will defer to her for any grant-related questions. So.
All right. Did everyone see the PowerPoint yet? Is that available? Okay, I can't see that, so I apologize. All righty, so welcome to the workshop. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for letting us introduce ourselves. And today we're mostly going to be talking about the grants manual. So you know what, we created a new grants manual for this year, 2025. That was the link that's included in the calendar invite today. So that link gets you to the manual. It's also posted on our website. This year we took all the instructions on Zoom grants and all the good advice we have, plus some pieces of policy, and we put it all into one document to you today. I will be walking through that document. So it's the manual. I also want to start off with a couple good pieces of news. There are no new questions in the application that are application questions or eligibility check questions. So plan on and prepare for those who are returning grantees, that it's the same information that we're asking, or same questions we're asking, and different information for you to share. The manual itself is laid out, and I'll show that in just a minute, is laying everything out in chronological order for you. So it starts from eligibility, application, then review, then award, and contract and payment. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. Inside of that manual, you'll have all the links that you'll need to every form, as well as copies of things like the full application is actually listed in there. The financial health test is listed in there. We're not going to talk today, like we do sometimes on these, about any current happenings with ZAP or updates or contractual obligations. We're really going to spend time on the application success, improving or sustaining, or even a new applicant. We want to help you put the best foot forward. So we'll spend most of the time just on the application itself. This is what the agenda will look like. We'll do introductions, which we've done. I'll spend a minute just reminding you of a few things with ZAP and our grantees. We'll talk about the basics of Tier 2 so you have a good understanding. Then a little bit of eligibility. We've changed that up slightly this year, and I just want to share that for the new applicants or returning applicants. If you're an existing applicant, we won't spend a lot of time on information there that you'll need to know. We'll talk about the timeline of the process of the review and the notification of award. And then I will, of course, give a demo of all the things that you need to do so you can get them done. And then we'll have time at the end for questions. Anything in the box before we get started, Kelsey? Nope. Alrighty. So I mentioned, oh, great. I mentioned before, I'm the program director, and Kelsey is the impact program manager, and she'll talk about that program a little bit in a minute. And then coming soon is our new grants and communications coordinator, who is the manager over the Tier 2 grantees and the process there. So they'll be joining in April, and we're excited to have them. ZAP program, you all know the mission. This has been the mission for such a long time, which is really wonderful, to enhance Salt Lake County resident and visitor experiences through art, culture, and recreational offerings. Recently, we had reauthorization last year. The grantees were great about educating folks, so thank you for that. So the 1/10 of 1% of the sales tax that happens in Salt Lake County did get approved for 10 more years. So ZAP should be set for 10 years, starting in 25 and moving its way around. The next reauthorization from the voters to vote on that 1/10 of 1% won't happen until about 34. Yeah. 2034. For Tier 2, there is an explicit funding purpose, and that's to enhance the cultural offerings for the community in Salt Lake County and to build your organizational capacity. So we want to help you do the things that you do and do them well, but it is not intended to be the majority of your funding. I really want to emphasize that because the board does look at that. The board spends time looking at the diversified funding sources that you have. It's really important to identify that in your application as your different sources of funding so they know that we're not the primary. And we'll get into that in a little bit. The ZAP mission is fulfilled in 3 ways. Grant making, which is what you're here for. Very exciting. If you look at this bullet point here, in 2024, you gave us statistics for 2023 activities that you did, and it really shows. So in 2024-25, there was 26 million recommended and approved by council. That was for a total of 244 recipients, reaching 7 million attendees. And this is for Tier 1, Tier 2, and zoological, these stats right here. So kudos to all who worked on that. Promotion, increased public awareness of the value of ZAP, and that's really us helping grantees get out there and get people to see grantees supporting their efforts and their events, your events. And then the last one, not least, of course, is capacity building. And I'm going to allow Kelsey to spend a minute talking about the impact program, which is now our new capacity building program.
Yeah, so for those of you that maybe are not familiar with this program, the impact program, we launched it at the beginning of last year. Several different components of providing capacity building support to our grantee community. That comes through workshops, which we do both virtually and in person. And our next workshop, I'm looking to get that scheduled for April, and hopefully we're going to do that on volunteer management. So some best practices on working with your volunteers and recruitment. So stay tuned for information about that. But we also do the collaborative program, which takes some of our Tier 2 community who submit an interest form. We create a cohort style of learning where you come in for 3 months of training on a topic that's selected by that cohort. So our first cohort is starting later this month. If there's any questions about what we're doing there, and if you have questions about opportunities to participate, just give me a call, shoot me an email, and happy to chat with you about that.
Okay.
Some of the examples of capacity building Kelsey's done in the past is around financial management, board management, marketing and communications, grant writing. So if you're interested, Kelsey's the one to talk to about capacity building. They are free. The things that we offer, we hire consultants to come in, professionals to do that work.
And I forgot to mention a really cool thing about that is that we're posting all of those videos that we have done virtually in person. So if you want to see them, if you didn't get a chance to see them, we're recording them and they're on the impact program page. So you can go back and check them out at your leisure.
That's great. I forgot about that. Thank you. All righty. So we're going to talk about the funding of Tier 2 and then of the advisory board. We talked about that it was the purpose was for organizational capacity and then the offerings in the community here in Salt Lake County. Again, the board's role is to review the applications and make recommendations to the council for final approval. There are 18 disciplines, 8 subcommittees, and an all-day review by the board, and we'll get into that in just a minute. These are just highlights. The 11-member board is estimated to, each person is estimated to read about 100 applications of each one of the board members. That was a lot for them last year, but they did a great job at it. And the review process that we do, it starts with the staff, then it goes to the board, and then the board's recommendations go to council. All righty, almost on the ZAP basics here. This is a funding model. We've seen this before. This is how it works when the 36 million comes in a year. 10 million of it goes to Parks and Rec for their operating of their rec centers and public spaces and parks. And you can see the other amounts that go to tier 1 and zoological. The orange one, the 9%, goes to tier 2. So the 9% last year was 3.4 million. So out of 3.4 million, there were 231 applications to split between that in 2024. We'll likely have about the same size award budget of about 3.4 million in 2025 for the board to use for tier 2 applicants. There's two ways that we allow funding to go out in the 9%. One is if you are in one of the 18 disciplines that's approved, then that's operating costs. So those would be folks who have their primary mission as an arts and culture in the county, and that more than 50% of their work is towards arts and culture.
Really? Oh, I am the black.
Can I just pause? Is somebody not muted? We're getting a lot of feedback from someone. Can you just double check to make sure you're muted? Thank you.
Thanks. And then the other way for those who aren't primary mission of arts and culture is we fund their projects and programs. And so that we ask for separate reporting, financials and other tracking and records, just so we understand the program and project if you're not a primary arts and culture organization. And again, we'll get into that. I'm just giving highlights right now. Congratulations to all the returning grantees from last year. This is the 2024 applicant stats that you're seeing on your screen right now. And the exciting thing is this was all done by you. These were all data points that you reported into ZAP for 2023. So you shared all the activities that you had done the previous year. So you can look and see the economic indicators on here for full and part-time jobs, volunteers, and contracts. You can see the programming that happened with events, attendees attending free events, is a great number. So congratulations and kudos to all the grantees last year that really made these numbers happen. It's very exciting. The council was thrilled to see these numbers. So thank you for your hard work. We're glad to be partners with you. All righty, I think we're going to start getting into the nitty gritty a little bit here. So buckle up, here we go. We've all seen this slide before. There's 3 primary criteria. There's some other ones, but these are the 3 primaries. To be a ZAP recipient is being a 501c3 nonprofit, providing programming in arts and culture for Salt Lake County and Salt Lake County. And then you fit into one of the disciplines, whether your whole organization that's their primary function, or the program or project you offer fits into one of these disciplines. If you have questions about the application as we move forward, when we get into the manual and you have those questions, feel free to give me a call or an email. We also made available for you Calendly, if you want to set an appointment in the manual through Calendly. The 501c3, when we ask for that, we're looking for your designation letter. Your organization should have received an IRS designation letter that you're a tax-exempt nonprofit. We will need that attached in the application. That's quite important, as well as having your U.
Fans, I got on now if you want to get off.
Hi, can we ask just one more time for folks to mute themselves? That would be so great. Thank you. These are the items that ZAP does and does not fund. If you can look on the ones that doesn't fund, if you look at it, it's towards items that are maybe lobbying or fundraising towards endowments or capital campaigns. It's pass-through monies like to scholarships that we don't do. It's also to items that maybe are a little bit higher liability, like fireworks, parades, and rodeos. But what it does fund, and I will tell you the majority of the applications that I see are salaries, rent, marketing or promotion costs, and things like supplies, whether that's equipment or office, supplies for a class. So those are kind of the most we see in applications that are most commonly asked for. Tech support and tech items are also for stages and things like that, but those are a little bit less asked for. All righty. Kelsey, I wonder if there's anybody that's got any chats before I start really getting into this. No? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Alrighty, these 3 scoring criteria categories are really important. This is the lens in which the advisory board members look at your application. They're trying to see how are you meeting artistic and cultural vibrancy? How is your organization doing public benefits and outreach? And what's your organizational capacity look like? How are you managed? And so when they're looking at the application, they're really looking at the questions through these 3 areas for their lens. We also, when we look at these 3 pieces right here, we also have another workshop that we did recently on February 6th when we had our open house. We did a grant writing best practices panel. It is recorded on our website for you if you'd like to hear any of that. Kelsey, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to that or not.
What I'm going to add is that I'm going to go ahead and just post that link in the chat. That will include where that panel discussion was with the grant writing tips, including somebody from our ZAP advisory board was speaking about what they look for when they're reviewing applications. But also that link will show you to the other workshops that are recorded.
Great, thank you. There is one area that doesn't show up on here primarily, and this is for those who are asking or requesting $22,000 or more from ZAP. This is the financial review. We will get into it later, but that's kind of the 4th area that isn't really for the board. It's more for our CPA. We have an independent CPA firm that we hire each year that performs financial health tests on anybody who asks for $22,000 and more. So that's one more component, and we'll talk about how she comes in, her firm comes in and advises the board about financial health of each organization. Alrighty. Oops. This is the annual cycle that we do each year. As you know, the application opened the first business day of March and it's closing on the last business day of April. So it's a 60-day window to turn an application in. If you are asking for over $22,000, we extend another 30 days for you to turn your financial information in. So you need to have your application done and submitted, but you get another 30 days until the end of May, the last business day of May, which this year is May 30th, to turn in your financial information that's required depending on what level of financial request that you have put in. Then June through about August or September, we review all the applications, the board reviews all the applications, and the council reviews the applications. By September, October, we do take that to council. We'd like to give you an answer by October. We'd like to give you a preliminary and a final answer in October. You'll receive 2 notifications from us. One will say that these are the official board recommendations, and it will say whether you've been approved, declined, or ineligible. And then it will give you the dollar amount of the value that the board is recommending for council to approve. Once council approves, that's about a 2-week window after that, or maybe a little bit longer, we'll send you another notification, and that notification will be the final. It'll give you your final dollar amount, and at that time, we'll also have scores in there, so you can look at your scores. And then if you have any CPA comments, if your CPA has made our CPA has made comments on your application, financial questions, comments, observations, that'll be in there as well. We like to have all the contracts signed before Thanksgiving. And anybody who's new, we have a payroll third party, or not a payroll, sorry, a payment third party system that we'd like you to get registered in because we do pay everybody through a third party. So we do contracts, like I said, and the new payment system, probably the end of October through to Thanksgiving. But we'd like to have everything wrapped up by then for the next cycle. All right. I wanted to make a comment, sorry. When you look at the June through September, the blue circle there, you'll see that's when the board is really spending all their time reviewing your Tier 2 applications. They have 8 meetings they meet throughout the summer. Each one of them is scoring and making funding recommendations preliminarily. And there's about 3 to 4 people on the board per subcommittee, and they do about 2 disciplines each time. So basically, they make all the preliminary decisions. And then when the board meets in August at the end of the month, they have an all-day meeting where they deliberate and finalize all those decisions to council. This is the payment timeline that I was just mentioning before, as contracts will be made available in October, just as soon as you possibly get your notification, final award amount, we try to have those contracts posted for you in Zoom Grants. Again, we sign all contracts unless you're a city. We sign all electronically through Zoom Grants. And then December, we try to make sure everybody's in Payment Works. That's the third-party system. Hopefully we can do that in November, but anybody else is left in December, so that we can issue a 60% award payment in January. If you have not received your 60% award payment in January, you got to let me know. Let's work on it and get it done for you. And then April is when you receive your 40% payment of your award. Again, if you have any issues with that as well, please let me know. Let's get you paid right away. Staying connected with ZAP, you can see some of our stats, but please sign up for you so you can see our handles on here. We'd love to be in communication with you. We also love when you share events with us, because then we can reshare those out and we can share what you're doing with all those who follow us. LinkedIn is new. As you can see, we just have 186 followers. So if you want to link in with us there, we're going to put more of our professional impact program and some of those other things on that page. YouTube is where we post all of our videos. We do have links on our website, but that all takes you to YouTube to view any of our content that's been recorded like today. All righty, application time. Did I see a question come in? Did I miss? No?
Miriam did have a great question just about
yeah.
picking up banners or ZAP promotional materials.
Sure.
And I just mentioned, so Tuesdays, Samantha and I are in the office, which is at the Mid-Valley Performing Arts Center. And that really is the best time to come by. But we would ask that you reach out to one of us ahead of time and just let us know when you're available. And we can come by another day too, if that's better for you. But definitely lots of ZAP branded materials if you'd like to come pick them up. Many pens and wonderful things like that if you need those as well.
Thanks for asking that question. Yes, we have buttons, pens, posters, banners, window clings, you name it. And if we're not here that day, a lot of times we can just package it up for you and have it prepared. So when you come, it's waiting for you if that's convenient. Occasionally we can drop off if there's an urgency situation of an event and you don't have a poster or banner. We have done that. So if that's needed, we can help with that as well. So thank you for asking that question. We really appreciate it. Okay. Our primary platform is Zoom Grants. I did see another question. I wanted to answer that before we get into it.
So listing ZAP funded events on our website was the question. So where you're going to want to do that is actually through Now Playing Utah, and you list all your events there. And then that is linked on our website. So we just ask you to put all of your events there, and we'll get it posted. It'll feed into our website.
Thanks, Kelsey. Appreciate it. Okay, the primary platform that you're going to be using is Zoom Grants. This is where you're going to do your narrative responses. You're going to put your budget and you're going to upload documents, financial documents, your organizational chart. If you want to show a video for your organization, that's where it's at. So that's the primary platform. The other platform you're going to use is Smartsheet. And this is just a supplementary couple documents that we need from you. So if you were funded in 2023, please submit a post-spending evaluation report. So go into your 2023 application if you were funded that year. So go back, unfortunately, to that year, and I think it's about 6 questions, and then we ask you to upload proof of posting on Now Playing Utah your events. So if you did 23 with us, please go in and do your post-spending report. That is something that is really important, and it's a qualification. So if you turn your application in, but you didn't do your post-spending report, you may be disqualified. So just remember that. Something really important. It's just one thing to tick off is that post-spending evaluation report from 23 for this year's application. And then we'll go into the Smartsheets in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, and then I'm going to give you some tips. And oops, excuse me. I'm going to turn off the sharing feature, except I'm not finding it. I can't turn off my, there we go. Ready. I'm just going to talk for a second. I wish I could make myself bigger. Kelsey, why can't I, if I'm talking for a minute, I just want to make myself bigger. This is the issue we were talking about earlier. But if not, I can just, oh, wow. Okay. I have some early things I'd like to share before we get into the details of the application that might be helpful, tips that might be really good to know. If you're tier 2 and you're considering applying for tier 1, we ask that you turn in 2 applications. So this year, if you want to be a tier 1, we ask you to turn a tier 2 application in and a tier 1. That way there's no gap in funding. If you were not able to get into tier 1, you have the tier 2 money. And if you get into tier 1, the way the year runs is you would not be duplicating. You would not be, it would not overlap. We wouldn't worry about that. You just fill out 2 applications. That way there's no gap. Does that make sense? I hope. Okay. A couple of rules or just guidelines for you to think about the board is aware of to clear up is there's a rule about not applying or requesting more than 7%. If anybody saw that, that means the whole budget for the award is $3.4 million. 7% of $3.4 million is $239,000, excuse me. So no one applicant can receive more than 7% of the overall budget is what they're saying. So they will not award anything over $239,000. Another one is primary source of funding. Even though it's tier 2, ZAP should not be your primary source of funding. The board really wants to see how you're diversified. They want to understand that you can stand up on your own 2 legs. And so any way that you can show or identify that you have diversified funding is really comfortable for the board. So consider ways to do that. And then the last one of those is it is competitive. Guaranteed funding is not. We don't have guaranteed funding. ZAP continues to be very wildly popular by the taxpayers. And so I see us always having funding for the foreseeable future, but just know that it is a competitive grant. And we had more applicants last year than we've ever had. So it is getting more competitive. And then I have a couple best practices as you go into the application that you might want to think about. If you're asking for a big increase, I have to say the board really wants to know why. So if you're asking for
you want to see the
10,000,
Zoo Arts and Parks director?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to see?
Oh, I hear Nancy talking, I think.
No.
The question is the comment is if you are asking for an increase, like a pretty good increase compared to what you have in the past, identify a reason why. The board really, this is one of their big things is they want to know why you want a difference. Is there a bigger need? And explain that need to them. Are you serving a different community? Is your community growing? So that's one thing I would say is if you're going to do a little bit of a jump, please share exactly why. They will ask that question. In your budget, when you prepare a budget, I would definitely recommend making sure that your narrative, whatever numbers you put in your narrative responses, match the numbers in your budget. So an example is question number 6 of the applications is asking you what you're asking for. How much money are you asking for? And that's a narrative question. They're asking you to list out how much money and for what. Ensure that number meets the number in your budget. And then when you're in your budget table, we'll get into them in just a second, please make sure your narrative explains that number. The board, it kind of drives them bonkers when they're seeing different numbers and they can't match up narrative numbers with table numbers from the budget. Hope that makes sense. Leverage your video. The board loves your video. They think it's a good way to get to know your organization. So if you can, whether it's a phone upload, it's a professional capture of a performance, whatever it might be, please, we encourage you strongly. They love to get to know organizations through their videos and count on them quite a bit. And they love to learn about the organization that way. Partnerships, if there's ways that you can identify in your application, other partnerships you have with other ZEP grantees or school districts or a local community that's in your city, they really want to hear about that. So anytime you can mention partnerships or leveraging relationships, I would strongly suggest that because the board wants to know that information. If you're asking for money for maybe not operational costs, but program or project costs for those who don't have a primary arts and culture purpose, please make sure you keep a separate budget and separate tracking of metrics, because that's what they want reported. They don't want the whole picture. They want to know how this program or project is working, and what it needs to be successful. And then my last one would be, I would encourage you to invite the board to your events. They do love getting invitations to your events. They love coming to your events. It's a big deal to them. They get to know you, or they watch your recording if you recorded them on your website. So those were kind of some tips I want to share with you about the application, about board members getting to know your organization and getting to know the right information. And then now we'll go ahead and get into the application. But I think, Kelsey, we want to take a little pause with some questions, and then we can go ahead and get into the actual Smart Sheets and Zoom Grants platforms. Do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll pause. Alan had a great question here. If additional funding sources that you report on your budget, if they have not yet been secured. So your budget form will have 3 columns: the previous year, which will include your actual amount. So yes, whatever funding you secured, your current year, and then your next year funding. And so for the current year and next year, it's understood that some of those might be projected funds. And then you can, of course, report how things were actually spent or actually received in your post-spending evaluation report. Did I miss anything there, Samantha?
Did you? I may have missed it. I was reading a question, but in your third year, the projected, if you're going to spend your money, do you want to make that comment, Kelsey?
In which year you're going to spend the funds?
Yeah, if you're going to spend it in year 2, then you don't have to put anything in projections for that third column. If you're going to spend it right away, you don't have to put them in the third column.
Correct. And there's some additional language, pretty much just what we said in that manual in the budget section. And then if you would like to, before you answer Miriam's question, I just also wanted to note that if you have any questions specifically about your project, your programming, what you're doing, what qualifies, really best to set up a 30-minute technical meeting conversation with Samantha so that you can have some more specifics and have just a more in-depth conversation about what may or may not be eligible. So I did include a link for Samantha's Calendly that you can, and I'll add it there again. You just go in there, put something on her calendar, and set time up to have that conversation. And then the last one, Samantha, our other question for you, look at the application, is Miriam had the question about if you've received the grant a couple of times, is it best to take a break from applying, or is it okay to keep applying year after year? So that's a good question.
That's an excellent question. We recommend that you stay with us. The board loves to get to know you and loves to know how long you've been. Have they been with us 10 years, 20 years, 7 years? They love the long-term relationships. They really do. So I would highly recommend once you apply, if you cannot depart, and some people have had to because of post-COVID, I'll be honest with you, the last 2 or 3 years, we had people depart and come back. That's okay. They get it. They understand, but they really do love long-term relationships and continuing to help be a partner, growing what you're offering the community. So, all righty. I'm going to move between platforms a couple times. So I'm going to go ahead and share. Give me just one sec. Okay. So to get the link to get in the application, it looks like we've had 17 people start, or 17 organizations have already started their application, which is just super, super wonderful. You start out on our website to get your link to get to the Zoom Grants platform. So here's the landing page when you get to our website. This is what it looks like. This is our home place. You can push on the tab. I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's a Grants tab. The tab says Grants. And you can pretty much find everything from here. You'll scroll down, and I don't want to make anyone sick, but I'm scrolling down, and it says Apply for ZAP funding. And Kelsey, I can stop for a couple more questions when we get there. This one talks about Tier 2 funding right here, and it gives you all the information. So this will be a link to the webinar, which you all saw. The grants manual we're talking about, I'll pull that up in just a second. And then the link to get into Zoom Grants is right here. And this is the kind of golden ticket, if you will, to get into the application. So you just click on this, and it will take you to Zoom Grants right away. And you will get into Zoom Grants, log in. You just put your username or ID, Give me 1 sec. I'm going to log in because it logged me out. Kelsey, while I'm waiting for the system, do you want to do
Yeah.
2 more questions?
The other question we had is a great question from Lisa about what budget numbers you'll want to report on your application. So if you were requesting funds for a specific project, you'll want to use the budget for which you're requesting funds. So you do not have to do a full organizational budget. Keep it specific to what you're requesting the funding for. Unless, of course, you are requesting general operating support funds and you are a arts, botanical, or cultural primary organization that you can request general operating support. So hopefully I didn't overcomplicate that. And then I just want to say that I did go ahead and add the link to our Tier 2 grant manual there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the application where we're at right now with SMAP.
Thanks, Kelsey. Okay, great. So when you get in, you're going to see a list of programs. You'd want to choose the 2025 Tier 2 application. You need to select that. When you get in there, you're probably just going to have last year and the year before's application. You won't be able to see. So you just need to go into where you can add the program, and then the name of it is just ZAP 2025 application. You click on that link once you've got it in there. And this is going to give me some internal stats for staff as an admin, and then I will flip it over to the other side. But it's going to take a minute. Okay, here we go. If you'll just be patient with our platform, as many of you know, it's a little bit, it can be a little bit slow or behind a little bit, but it always usually does come through. And if you have any questions on Zoom grants, that's another opportunity to reach out to me and ask for how to add something or take something out or fix something. Okay. So now I'm going to put it into the view that you get, or you should get, when you log into your application for the first time and start kind of filling it out. We'll walk through the different tabs and where some instructions are, as well as the manual, and where that can give you good information as well. In fact, maybe while I'm waiting on this, I'll just pull up the manual. Okay, so this is what the manual looks like. And again, this is something that we took all the instructions out of Zoom grant. I mean, they're in Zoom grants, but we extracted from it. We pulled some things from policy and just some good practices and put them in here, all in chronological order. So this is what it looks like. It's a PDF document. It's easy to move around in. And if I make anyone sick, I can slow down. But here's a nice table of contents to tell you what's in here. It talks about the process, timeline, eligibility, application workshop, review process, contract and payment processes, contractual obligations, our contact information, and then in a nice appendix with all that information. The way that you can look at this is it is color coded. I'm going to get through our history because we've already done all that. So excuse me for combing through this messy thing here. We are going to, so application workshop webinar, that's a different color. So each one is colored differently. 3 is the application process. So just know that this is really put together as well as we can with lots of links for you to ask any questions that you might need help with. I'm going to scroll to the bottom. So, let me make anybody sick. Sorry. It's got our contact information, our hours, our names, where we're located. And then in the appendix, you can see here that we have application questions all listed out for you. We have the additional data so that you have it on hand, and anything you can think of is in here, hopefully. And if there's not, please let us know. We will improve. For example, this has the actual copy of what the application looks like and how the board sees it. So this will help you get through your application questions. There are other documents in here. The financial health test is in here, the additional data. Remember, when you go into Smartsheets, it doesn't save anything. Sorry. Right here. So we'll talk about this one in a second, but this is another form that you fill out inside Smartsheets and Zoom grants that's already right here that you can kind of prepare ahead of time and say, okay, we already have the answers to this data. Okay, here we go. All right, so your screen should look like this when you log into Zoom grants and you have pulled the application up. And I'm just going to go through these tabs, and then maybe we can ask questions after each tab. I think it's probably what it's going to be. The summary, I highly recommend this summary be updated. A lot of people don't. If they've been a returning grantee, they don't update this, and then they wonder, hey, we never got an email. Hey, we never got a phone call. nobody contacted us, or vice versa. We're trying to reach out to you for a payment, for a question on your application, and we don't have this information. So please, please, I know the summary has a lot of basic stuff that doesn't need to be updated, but if anything has changed in your organization, I would ask that you look at this and you put names and phone numbers that are accurate today, and who's in charge of what. Make sure your Utah entity number is the same. Your financial contact and budget contact are all the same. So again, this is an easy page for the most part. It's just kind of refreshing. If you've been a current grantee, it should autofill, and you just need to make sure it's up to date. If you need instructions for it, this little tiny yellow box says instructions, and it says show and hide, and you can just push it and see they just pop up. Now, again, more detailed information is in the manual, but we did leave some instructions in here for you as well. So under the summary tab or your profile tab, it's summary. It's really a summary. You can see the instructions, and then you can just update the information. That one shouldn't take long at all. Do we want to stop here? Or do you want me to go on to eligibility check? I didn't see how many questions came in. Okay, we're going to keep going. This eligibility check, we mentioned 2 of these. So this one is for anyone who fills out an application. This is just a few simple questions about your primary mission, what discipline you're in, and we did expand many of the character limits. So we've had people say we need more space to write, and so we did expand character limits as much as we could. But you'll look in here and see that these are just questions about basics. The address where you do performances versus a billing address. Those are kind of the differences. So those questions there's 12 of them, and you need to answer all of them, every single one of those 12. Doesn't matter how much you're asking for, those eligibility questions have to be asked. I also want to mention that this is where you attach your tax exempt status letter from the IRS is right here. You just upload it on the right. You see that oval that says upload on the very right bottom hand corner. That is where you can upload your IRS certificate. Everyone has to fill this out. Now, if you're a brand new grantee and you've never done an application with us, we ask that you fill out for yourself and for us the eligibility document. It looks like this. It's also called the same name. It is not in the Zoom Grants platform. It's on our website, and it's to be helpful for you to fill out and think, okay, I filled this out. Sounds like we're qualified. I'm going to reach out to Samantha and have a technical support meeting to make sure our organization qualifies. Or the opposite. You know, I feel like we qualify, but this thing isn't saying that we qualify. I took the eligibility check smart sheet, and I'm going to call anyway and see if we can qualify. We don't mind that, whether it shows more that you're declined or more that you are eligible. You know, please give us a call. Let's have a conversation and see what we can do for you. But it's a simple form. Just ask the basics about your organization related to the eligibility. So this is on our website. Again, this is just for the new applicants. This one in here, oops. This one here, this eligibility check in Zoom Grants, that's for everybody. So I think this is a good pause before we go to the application or budget questions, unless you want to do one more tab before I move on.
I think it's a good time.
Okay.
We did have a few questions. Amanda asked if anyone has to do a letter of inquiry before you can start the application. So nope, you can just jump right in. That eligibility check form is a good tool just to make sure you're meeting the eligibility criteria before you begin an application. And then, of course, I just recommend reviewing that nice, meaty manual document. It'll give you, hopefully answer a lot of questions you have, but no step 1, just jump right in. Roxy had a good question about which web browser to use for Zoom Grants, and I would recommend Chrome. I think that's the best for this platform.
Any other ones?
That's it.
Okay, great.
Good.
Okay, application questions here. Let's get into that a little bit. Here we go. There are 2 places you can find instructions, again, or 3 places. The manual, which is what we recommend, that has more of the detail. But you can also, these boxes on the top, these 3 show instructions. I push those tabs. That's for funding for tier 2. This is for eligibility requirements, reminders. And this last one is for restrictions, like what kinds of things ZAP does not fund. So that's one way to kind of find them. The manual was another we mentioned. And then you can also do the same thing here. You can click this down under application questions, and find instructions there as well. They're all the same instructions for the most part. Maybe the language is slightly different, but we wanted you to be able to access it just about anywhere. Again, I would recommend this optional video. I know it's not even question 1, it's like question 0. We highly, highly recommend that you do that. Again, you can't just drop one in there. You do have to, it does have special instructions that talk about an embed code that it will generate a URL link is what we need for the board members to be able to review. So even though it's not a question, I highly, highly recommend it, and it's optional to go ahead and put something in there. They would really, really appreciate that. The questions here are all the same as last year. We're looking to understand your organization so that the board understands your organization. If you'll notice, this is also in the manual, but let's look at question 1. It actually lists out for you which category of the criteria. Remember, we talked about the 3 criteria that the board looks at. This question number 1, that criteria question is for artistic and cultural vibrancy. Does this, when you respond to your board approved mission statement, does it help the board see how you're meeting the criteria of artistic and cultural vibrancy? That's an example. So each one of these, like number 2, for example, it has organizational capacity. So that question will go towards that criteria when you respond to it. That will be weighted for organizational capacity. So you will answer, everyone will answer, sorry, I'm scrolling down here, all the way down to 12. So everyone does 1 through 12 and optional video. And then those applying for $22,000 or more, you answer 13 and 14. Again, only those. If it shows up for you, if question 13 and 14 show up for you in Zoom grants, just put not applicable for those 2 responses if you're not asking for more than 22,000. This section here is the data smart sheet. We've been talking about that quite a bit. Again, this is the points that help us understand, what your board looks like, where you hold your activities, what kinds of activities you had. This is an additional data dashboard. We'd love to have it in Zoom grants, but the platform couldn't hold it. And so we had to ask for this additional data from you on your programming and those kinds of things in a separate form. And I'm going to pull that up for you right now. This is what it looks like. This is the form. It's not too terrible. It's got some basic information and asks about your discipline. And then it goes into things about like how many employees do you have? How many volunteers do you have? How many how many events do you have per fiscal year? Where did you hold those? Like what cities? So the form isn't too terrible, but I just want to do a reminder. Zoom grants, you can put content in and save, okay? But in here, if you don't finish it, you can't save and come back. So Zoom grants, you can do content, save it, and come back and finish it. This you can't. So we've supplied you with this actual form in paper, electronically, in the manual. And that way you can prepare to have all your answers filled in on the paper and then come in here and put the data so you don't lose any of your content. One other thing I was going to mention in Zoom grants is there's not save buttons, right? It's kind of weird, but the way they do it is kind of interesting and frankly helpful is you just click out of the box. So if you're typing something in this box on question number 1 and you're done or you want to finish up later, you just click outside the box and it will say saving. It will pull up a little button for you and it'll say that it's saving. So just know that what you do put in Zoom grants, you can definitely save and come back. It's not a problem at all. It's just the other platform you can't. Okay, we're going to talk about budget for a second. Again, there's 2 tables and they do have instructions. Right here, we can do the save and hide. The same information is in the manual, all in one place. You can pull this yellow box down and it will share what you should put into each of the items. So here you can see there's a 1 through 9. And then another table that has got the rest of it through 22. If you have anything that's odd or different, I would recommend going into the narrative right here. So there's an opportunity for you to explain things. This section here and this box at the bottom is a narrative for you to explain anything that's outstanding or seems funky or that you think the board member wouldn't understand. We encourage you to use that narrative. But remember, if you use it and you put any numbers in it, make sure it matches the table. Okay. I'm going to go back just one more to explain something. Application question 6 right here, list out and describe specifically how your organization will spend the ZAP funds that you are requesting. So it's just what you will spend it on, how much will be spent, location of expense, when funds will be expended. Then it gives you the categories this question will count for, and then it gives you some help language to figure this out. Now you're going to put numbers in this number 6. This number 6 numbers need to match the table. Like the final number needs to match table. I hope that makes sense, but I just wanted to do a reminder. Could we have someone, everyone go ahead and put it on mute? Would be great. Thanks. So when you're in this budget doing your tables, you need to just make sure that that this kind of information, at least the bottom number, is matching your narrative question number 6 on the application. So I'm going to do the last one, and then we can pull up questions if that's okay. Well, second to last one. This is your documents. Everyone is required to turn an organizational chart in, which is pretty easy. This section right here, I'm going to explain in 1 minute, but it is for anyone asking over 22,000, just for them. They need to turn in a board member list. If you're asking for 22 to 42, you need to have an auditor's peer review letter. If you are asking 22,000 to 43,000, it's a certified financial review of the most recent fiscal year. And then if you're asking for 43 to 85, it's a certified audit again. For those two are kind of the same, most recently completed fiscal year. And then if you're asking for anything over 85, it's 3 consecutive years of audits. So those are just for the people that ask for over 22. These are optional for everyone. I would highly encourage, I remember I mentioned earlier some advice that I had regarding the board's point of view is partnership programs. So if you have a list of some of your partners and your programs, I would recommend, again, it's optional. You don't have to, whether you're 22,000 and above or you're below. Visual documents, so maybe your programs and your brochures, annual reports, strategic plans. And then we do sometimes you need to use your logo. So if you can upload it for us, great. If we need to use it and we don't have it, we will contact you. But we use it for our directory on our website. We have a huge directory of all of our grantees so that people can find you. We put your logo there. We put your contact information, your website. It's a really easy tool for them if they're looking at events and things like that from us. So those are optional. But these are the documents and materials that you need to accompany with you in your application. So I'm going to maybe stay here for a question, and then Kelsey, do you want to field those, and I'll go back to something.
You have to unmute yourself for people to hear you. So really good questions in there. I'm not going to go back through all of them, but a few that we have here that I have not yet answered. So Miriam just has a question about federal grant funding and how some of that has been frozen, and there may be a little uncertainty there. But just as a reminder, the ZAP program is funded through a sales tax initiative. So it is a voter approved area of funding, and it is collected through that sales tax. And so it is not through federal funding sources. So at this time, I see it continuing as it has. And then this one I'll give to you, Samantha, with Angela had a great question about applying for the same amount that they did last year, even if they didn't receive the amount they requested, if it was a lesser amount. Any recommendations on maybe if you should tweak narrative, change the amounts or anything like that?
That's a great question. We shared a little bit of this, but I hope this can be helpful. With so many new applicants and similar budgets than in previous years, it really put a budget constraint on the board. And so some people did receive flat funding or not much of an increase just because of the amount of money that the board was given for the award budget. The other thing is they were really looking for strong applications. With so many applicants, it's getting more competitive, and they're really looking for people to answer those questions. Why are you asking for an increase? And who are your other funding sources that support your organization? Provide us a video, again, so they get to know you. Invite them to your events. They really want things articulated well. They really do are passionate about reviewing your applications. They read every single one of them, every single word. They look at your budget tab. So just think about that. Also, technical support meeting is always helpful. If you want to set an appointment with myself and or Kelsey, and we can walk through your organization, particularly what are you trying to share? What community do you serve? Sometimes you think you're sharing why you need the increase, but maybe not. And so we're willing to do those technical support meetings and also send particular notes. We recently had a couple phone calls with folks, and we did a deep dive, and we went and gave them a whole analysis email of here's what the board said about it in detail. And we went back to those board members and said, can you share what you felt and what you saw when you read this application? And we were able to give them a detailed description. So we can help with some of those things as well to improve your application. Not everybody, not every application, but if there's things that stand out, we can definitely help through a phone call or talking to board members. Not the applicants talking to them or grantees, but us asking them to provide additional information for the grantees who have questions. I think there were a few more. Okay.
There was a great question, and it's funny. So Kristen made note of something we encountered just the other day. So the language around the amount that you can request, that it cannot exceed 7% of the total tier 2 budget. And then afterwards, we note that that's 239,000. So it's not 7% of 239,000, it's 7% of the total grant budget, which is approximately 239,000. So I think we're going to tweak some of that language next year because it does, it can be a little confusing, but yes, your request cannot exceed 239,000.
I'll add too, it might be helpful for folks, is we had 231 applications last year, and about 30 of them, only 30 of them asked for 22,000 and above. All the majority of them were below the 22,000. The highest award that was given last year was 130,000. So I don't know if that's helpful, but to give some parameters. And then, is there another question? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and I am going to talk about the evaluation. So for those of you who were grantees in 2023 and that you need to turn in your evaluation or your post-spending report, essentially what it is, this is what it looks like. It's in Zoom Grants, and you go ahead and answer the questions, and then you're going to have a Smartsheet link right here, if you can see that, and you click on that Smartsheet thing. Again, it would normally be inside the platform of Zoom Grants, but we just weren't able to do that, so we have to go outside. I know that's really challenging, and so I'll show you what that looks like. This is what it looks like. Sorry, this is additional data. Post-spending report. I can't find it. Yikesers. Well, let me just put the link in then. Give me 1 second. There we go. This is what it looks like when you get into it. So it's not a ton of information. It's just asking your organization's contact information, what reporting period you're counting on, how you spent your money, and then the name of the events. It's just very basic. It's 6 questions, but we do need that completed and filled out for 2023. And the reason is, people say, why is that 2 years old? Like, why is that so far back? We allow you to spend the money within an 18 month period. So in the application, one of the questions is, what 12-month period are you planning to spend the money? And so you can say, oh, maybe July 25 to June 26 is your fiscal year. We're going to spend the money in there. We actually allow it to be spent from January 26 to December 27 for this next year, if that makes any sense. That's a complicated one. I hope I got that one. But the point is that we're just asking you to put in what 12-month period, because we give you 18 months. So every year when you fill out a new application, you're doing a post-spending report for 2 years previous. So only 2023 is due this year for post-spending. You'll do 2024 next year when it's 26. Hope that helps. All right, let's see. I do want to talk about 22,000 and above. I have pulled up the, oops, let's go here. Share to, okay. The additional data that I just pulled up, again, remember Smartsheets doesn't save it. We put this form for you in the manual so you can fill out the employee numbers, events numbers, activity areas that you have events located in, and then you can transfer it over to the Smartsheets platform. For those applying to over 22,000, we have a financial health test that's gone through. The financial health test is performed by the independent CPA, and it's on 6 points, 6 questions here. And so over the summer, I mentioned that the process is the grant review board, the advisory board, goes through all the applications and makes preliminary recommendations on dollar amounts and scores for grantees. And at the end of the summer, they get together in August and have an all-day review meeting. The independent CPA firm comes to that meeting and reports on each applicant over 22,000. Again, last year it was around 30 applicants, and tells us how they're doing. Did they pass the financial health test? Did they fail the financial health test? Are they somewhere in between? And so you really want to make sure you pass. If you fail 2 of these 6 tests or more, you automatically fail. That doesn't mean you don't get funding. ZAP isn't that way. It means that you would provide us with an improvement plan. So how do you improve the financial health of your organization? We would ask for a plan, and we have guidelines for that plan, but we don't see a lot of failures. I think last year in Tier 2, there were 3 or 4 financial health test failures of the 30 applicants. But again, that doesn't mean that we won't fund you. It means that they'll look at it seriously about the dollar amount you're asking for and the other diversified sources of income that your organization has. So that's the financial health test. If you have questions on this, I can walk through it with you. Really, the CPA does it, and then we provide you the CPA's feedback, whether that was good, bad, or indifferent. We do provide her feedback each year when we send you the final council approvals of the award amounts. Okay, are there any questions that we can field right now before we move on? We're almost done. We're about ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, Sheila asked where you're going to find that post-spending evaluation form. And yes, you will go back to your 2023 application to find the form.
All righty. Okay. Kelsey, any other things that you want to think about showing or talking through that would be helpful? We kind of showed most of it, but we'll kind of wrap up maybe.
Yeah, I think we're good. If you want, you can open it up for additional questions, or if you have other things. Did you have anything else?
For me, it was, I just want to remind everyone to please turn it in by April 30th. That is a hard deadline. Oops, I don't know what happened there. It went backwards on me. Please turn it in by then so that we can not disqualify anybody just based on that. I would hate to do something like that. So please turn them in. Oh, it keeps doing that. And then I would say the last thing is related to that is just make sure you check the boxes, because if you turn your application in, but you don't have your IRS form, or you turn your application in and you don't have your post-spending report done, or you didn't complete your budget tables, that really, we don't want it to lead to disqualification. But let's say it didn't lead to disqualification. It may lead to a lower score and a much lower funding amount. So again, just make sure you're checking all your boxes. The manual that we showed earlier, that PDF, is really your guide to making sure you're checking all your boxes and doing all your things. But I encourage you to contact me too if you have questions. Not much has changed. I know it was kind of scary this year to see the new eligibility check for the new applicants. It was kind of interesting to see a new manual come out. We were doing that just purely to help folks have better scores, increase funding amounts, and the board to understand more about what you're trying to achieve so they can feel comfortable awarding those dollars. So not a lot has changed. It's just really putting it all out there for you so you can see the rules, you can see the best practice tips that we have in here. The manual also talks about the scoring. If you want to improve your score and improve your dollar amount, I know that was one of the questions of, hey, we just got flat funding. In the manual, you will see we have the scoring matrix broken down for you and examples of how they're scored. The weight is equal among them. So feel free to jump in there. There's also the scoring of what each score means and advice on an exceptional application. If you want to turn in an exceptional application, it has all the advice in there as well. So I'm done. I know I talked quite fast, but I hope that was absorbed, but happy to take more questions. Does anybody have advice or or you have suggestions of things to put in the manual or to put to understand for ZAP? We're happy to take those as well.
This is Jerry Floor. I'm just need some clarity. We go for more than 22. Am I to understand that the age-old problem with audits being done in time is now extended to May 31? Is that what you said?
That's something that's been going on each year, Jerry. Every year that I've been here and before me is that you get the 60-day window to do your application. But yes, you have that extra 30 days till May 30th this year to turn in any of those financial documents, to get all that stuff in. Because we know that's a struggle. Sometimes it's a peer review letter. Sometimes it's actual certified financial review.
But the
you got an extra 30 days.
Application is due April 30. Am I correct on that?
Say that one more time.
Well, the basic application is due April 30th, and then those other items can take up to May 31st. Is that correct?
30th. This year it's the 30th. Yep. May 30th. Yes. Those financial documents. And a lot of people take advantage of that, Jerry. So feel free to do that.
Few questions in the chat. If we receive, or if you'll get an email confirmation from Zoom Grants once you've submitted it. And I'm not sure that actually happens. I think you get a screen in Zoom Grants that says it's been submitted, but I don't know if you get an email.
I do believe you get an email, but we can check on that. And if there is a way to do that, we can set one up.
I'll look through my tested one too. I was
just going to say, I thought I got one.
But
I think I got one for my test too, but let's confirm.
And then Sheila, the other thing I would recommend with Zoom Grants, double check your spam or your junk folders. It does sometimes go there. So you might just want to check that and whitelist it if it is going to one of those sources. I'm going to jump to a few other questions if you want to look that up at all. And I'll look as well. I was
just going to send another response is basically you just need to whitelist notices at Zoom Grants. That's an email that comes in, but notice making sure that you whitelisted it for any kind of announcements, whether it's the submission, which I'll check on in just a second, or it's the information from the board making final decisions and the council. I would definitely make sure you whitelist the one that is notices at Zoom Grants if you haven't done that already.
And then Trina said, yes, she has received a notification that comes from Zoom Grants. So yes, thank you for confirming that for us.
Yes.
Jessica, I think we would love to have your visual documents that are both in English and Spanish. Please go ahead and give us both copies. I think that's great. RJ, when we ask you for proof of Now Playing Utah, one of those uploads is actually a link to your page, your profile page on Now Playing Utah. So you don't have to have confirmation of each of those events, but the link, the board can go to your page and see all of the events there. Is that, and then, and Alan said, can we have an example of what a successful grant proposal looks like? Very common request. It is not something that we have right now this year, but it is something that I think we can look into next year as we continue to refine and update our processes and our help documents. So that is something that I think we can look at. We have a couple of snippets of here's a good response here or there. So I think between this year and next year, we'll put some of those things together as examples of successful narratives.
We also want to offer next year an example or a template of a budget, like an actual budget that the board really liked, that they liked the way the tables were done and they understood it with the narrative questions. So next year, you'll also see that as well as a good example of the budget tables matching the narrative questions to be successful in that way as well. Any others coming through?
I think we can also hang on the line for a minute if there are other questions that come through. But if I think anybody needs to get moving with their day. Yeah, anything else on that, Samantha?
Yeah, we're willing to stay probably a little past 1:30. So if people want to individually ask questions or little things, we'll stay on the line. Otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we look very excitedly towards seeing your applications, and so does the board. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you all.
Appreciate your joining us.